All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're going to bridge a really fascinating gap. We're taking 50 years of deeply human, lived experience with addiction, and we're merging it directly with cutting-edge neuroscience. It's a pretty powerful intersection when you think about it. On one side, you have decades of clinical observation and intense personal narratives. You know, the really emotional, messy side of struggling with alcohol. And on the other side, we've got the latest neurobiological reviews and long-term studies that map out exactly what is going on inside the brain. By bringing these two worlds together, we're going to map out the real architecture of recovery.
So let's tackle a massive misconception right out of the gate. It's this idea that abstinence is the finish line. Society often looks at someone who has finally stopped drinking and thinks, great, problem solved, the crisis is totally over. But as you'll see, both the lived experience of recovery communities and modern scientific consensus tell a completely different story. Look, stopping the substance is absolutely life-saving, no doubt about it. But it leaves this massive, lingering question in its wake. How do you actually rebuild a life? Well, to understand the climb out, we first have to understand the descent.
Think about how this whole thing starts. According to the author's alcohol staircase model, you begin with the non-drinker and the social drinker. Alcohol might be around, sure, but it isn't the center of the universe. But then, there's a step down to the abusive drinker stage. This is where drinking becomes consistently harmful. It starts causing real conflict, poor decisions, instability. And the really crucial thing our sources point out is that this stage isn't usually just about partying too hard. Actually, it's very often a desperate attempt to self-medicate underlying emotional pain, things like depression, grief, anxiety, or just profound loneliness. The drinker is definitely in trouble here, but they aren't necessarily deeply chemically addicted just yet.
Now, there is a profound boundary line between that abusive drinking stage and what comes next. It's this pivotal moment when drinking shifts from a fragile shield, like a bad habit you use for emotional relief, into incredibly heavy chains. We're talking about the shift to the psychologically addicted stage. At this point, alcohol is no longer just a coping mechanism. It becomes an absolute necessity. Honestly, it feels as vital as food or water to the person experiencing it. Finding relief from negative feelings completely overrides any pleasure the alcohol used to provide. That original emotional pain? Oh, it's still there. But now, a totally new illness, active addiction, has been layered right on top of it. The person's entire relationship with the substance and, really with their own life, has fundamentally changed.
And as the descent continues, the tone gets much darker. The physical trap takes over. We drop into the physically addicted stage, where the body's literally just as trapped as the mind. Hangovers aren't just miserable mornings anymore. They morph into terrifying physical experiences that require more alcohol just to steady the nerves. Stopping at this stage without medical help is actually incredibly dangerous. And if nothing interrupts this freefall, you reach the end-stage alcoholic. At this very bottom step, the damage isn't just social or psychological anymore. It's biological ruin, physically tearing down the liver and the neurological system and heading straight toward death.
Which brings us to a really vital turning point in this whole story. Getting off that downward staircase is life-saving, yes, but as our sources beautifully put it, abstinence alone is not the whole miracle. It's just the beginning of the miracle. Halting the freefall is absolutely necessary because it stops the active daily destruction. But if we think that simply removing the alcohol instantly repairs all the damage, we are completely missing the reality of this illness. Abstinence is literally just the starting line. The person is left standing at the very bottom of the stairs, and now they have to figure out how to actually live.
Because think about it, simply removing the alcohol leaves a person with what's commonly known as dry drunk syndrome. By the time someone reaches psychological or physical addiction, they've spent years, sometimes decades, pushing aside any healthy ways of dealing with stress and replacing them entirely with a bottle. So when you just take that bottle away, all that built-up resentment, the fear, the self-pity, the dishonesty, it's all still sitting right there. The person is sober, sure, but internally they are still a chaotic mess. They don't have the tools to face life on life's terms yet. True recovery has to be about building a completely different way of living, not just the physical absence of a drink.
So, you might be wondering, what does this all mean for the brain itself? Is the addicted brain just permanently broken? For a really long time, there was this lingering, pretty bleak fear, even among medical professionals, that an end-stage addiction permanently hardwired the brain for destruction. If a person is still struggling so intensely just to feel normal after they stop drinking, is it just a hopeless biological situation? Well, the answer to that question is quite literally one of the most exciting and uplifting developments in modern addiction science.
Get ready for some deeply hopeful news from contemporary neuroscience. Those neural reward systems that were completely hijacked by alcohol, they actually actively improve. The brain is incredibly plastic.
Executive function, your ability to make decisions, plan for the future, and regulate stress, it actually starts to come back online. Memory recovers. The brain literally physically heals itself the longer a person stays abstinent. The absolutely crucial takeaway here is that recovery isn't just about trying really, really hard to be a better person. Your biology is actually working with you, repairing the damage over time. How amazing is that?
But, and this is a really important but, independent medical studies going back centuries all converge on one stubborn fact. Substance use disorder is a spectrum. Every single person's recovery trajectory unfolds on its own completely unique timeline. The academic reviews we're drawing from looked at population studies, longitudinal tracking, clinical observation, modern neuroscience, you name it, and they all agree recovery is absolutely not uniform. Some people stop drinking and their brain bounces back relatively quickly. For others, the biological vulnerability, the intense cravings, and that emotional chaos persist for a really long time, despite their absolute best efforts. Meaning, we just can't judge one person's biological healing rate against another's.
So, how does this biological healing combine with daily practical action? Well, it requires an active upward climb. It's a process of replacing self-rule with guidance, taking honest inventory, making moral amends, and maintaining a life of service. The sources highlight this structured path, which you'll often recognize in 12-step programs as a highly functional way to rebuild a life. Steps 1 through 3 are about a fundamental shift in how you view life, admitting your own way isn't working and accepting outside help. Then, steps 4 through 7, that requires deep, painful inward work, taking a truly honest inventory of your character and stopping the blame game. Steps 8 and 9 force reality into the light by making actual moral amends to the people you've harmed. And finally, steps 10 through 12 are all about maintenance and service, literally helping others to ensure you don't slide backward yourself.
When you put it all together, both 50 years of lived experience and the absolute latest neurobiological reviews agree on this. Abstinence creates the space to heal, but a complete personal transformation creates the actual recovery. If you just stop the substance, you've essentially just put up a shield. You've paused the destruction. But true recovery is about cultivating a completely different way of living, fundamentally changing how you interact with the world, how you handle stress, and how you treat other people. Science tells us your brain is actively rewiring itself to support this change, but you have to do the behavioral heavy lifting. You have to participate in your own rescue. It's that exact combination, the biological brain healing over time, paired with a rigorous, honest restructuring of your daily life, that turns a dry, miserable person into someone who is genuinely happy, joyous, and free.
I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to chew on. If true recovery is an ongoing, highly individualized process of transformation, what does it actually mean for you to heal? Whether you're looking at this through the lens of a neuroscientist tracking brain plasticity in a lab, or a person sitting in a recovery meeting doing an honest inventory of their life, the ultimate truth is exactly the same. The staircase down is a brutal trap of biology and behavior, but the climb back up, that is a dynamic, lifelong journey of growth. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this synthesis of hard science and human experience has given you a powerful new perspective on what it truly means to recover.